I'm Naima Latif, and if you're watching this, that means you're one of the 4.6 billion people from around the world who are using an electronic device to talk to people. In these times, people are using the internet to talk to everybody. Friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers. People are on their cell phones and computers all day long. Now, if you're in business, that is great news. That means you can sell your products and services all day long and never have to leave your home. All you need is a media connection, somebody to connect you to an audience. And that's why I'm talking to you today. We produce programs, and our audience members are people who shop. They buy clothes, food, beauty supplies, cleaning supplies, home repair, transportation services, child care services. Whatever you're selling, they need to buy it. We're your media connection. Just follow this link, and tomorrow you can sit back and relax at home while your business is making you money.
Blog Talk Radio. Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution. Join me, Naima Latif, every morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, as we bring you stimulating discussions about the issues affecting our lives. If you're listening online at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution, press the blue button that says follow and get our daily topics every morning directly to your email and your smartphone. Hi, I'm Naima Latif, Executive Producer of the Female Solution Radio Show. We invite you to call in 515-605-9325 and participate in this daily think tank as we examine the challenges we face and develop solutions that restore peace and harmony. We are global transformers, changing the world from the way it is to the way it should be. We are one. Wherever we live on this earth, we are one human family. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to extend a greeting to all the members of our family, whenever and wherever you may be listening around the world. To our family in China, Ni Hao. In India, Namaste. In Japan, Konnichiwa. In Korea, Annyeonghaseyo. In Russia, Здравствуйте. In Germany, Guten Tag. In Poland, Dzień dobry. In France, Bonjour. In Spain, Hola. In Italy, Ciao. In Egypt, Ahlan wa sahlan. In Ghana, Akwaba. In Nigeria, Peleo. In South Africa, Sawubona. In Senegal, Nangadef. In Kenya, Jambo. In Israel, Shalom. In Pakistan, Afghanistan, Palestine, and Saudi Arabia, Assalamu alaikum. Greetings, and may peace be upon you all. Join us live on the on-air radio network. Call 727-731-5192. We want to talk to you. Yes, we do want to talk to you. And joining us live from London, England is our Saturday morning host, Zhana. Grand Rising. Well, it's good evening.
Good evening. Grand Rising. Yes, it's evening where you are and afternoon where we are. Yes, we're just passing the noon hour, and there is, what is it, 6 o'clock there in the evening?
Yes, it's 6 o'clock here.
Yes.
So today is almost over.
Yes,
But
today
I've
is
got some
almost
really
over.
good news, which is I've acquired a brand new laptop today.
Oh, that is
Because
fantastic.
I haven't even taken it out of the box yet. But it means hopefully some of my technical difficulties will be diminishing or disappearing now.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's really what they make these machines for, that you will have to get an upgrade. Just like a car, it'll serve you for a while. And then things change, they upgrade the systems.
Well, I'm going to get a really good one, but I'm still waiting for some of my cash flow to start flowing. So I thought I really need a laptop now. So I've got a little cheap one, and that'll have to tide me over until I can get the one that I want. But soon, I'll get a more powerful one.
Yes. Well, we're looking forward to that.
Today, I'm not in the studio at all because I've just acquired my new laptop. It's still in the box. But I can do my little intro if you like.
Oh, absolutely.
Welcome to the Success Strategy Show with me, Zhana, on the Female Solution Worldwide Radio and TV Network. I'm the author of Success Strategies for Black People and Affirmations for Parents. And I host the annual blogging carnival for nonviolence. And I'm your host for today and the first Saturday of every month.
Yes.
Here on the Success Strategy Show, every month we try to help you and support you to find solutions to your problems. We're here to help you make 2024 your best year yet. Today, my guest is William. Is William in the house?
Let's see. William hasn't joined us yet. He hasn't joined us yet. We'll look for him to dial in.
He's doing some really exciting stuff. He's a teacher of many years' experience based in Florida, and he teaches tech. He teaches to elementary school students, and he also teaches in higher education. And what he's doing now as well, alongside his wife, Aida, is he is teaching in Africa as well. So he's teaching in Kenya, in Nigeria, and in South Africa. So I'm very excited to hear what he has to say. Our topic for today is what do men want. Last month we were talking about what do women want, and we had a very interesting discussion. And this month we're going to be talking about what do men want. So I'm very, very interested to know what William has got to talk about. He's also setting up a book project, and he's looking for authors, because what he's doing is on one of his websites, he's putting book covers, different book covers, which will be relevant to children, but also some of them will be relevant for adults as well. So if you're a writer, if you're an author, if you had a book published and you want to promote it, this is an opportunity to get it promoted.
That is wonderful.
But anyway, we'll wait for William to join us.
As we look forward to hearing from William, I think when we as women look at the state of our relationships, and we have all these demands of what men ought to do, and sometimes we get resentful when they tell us what they would like from us. But really, in order for us to have harmonious relationships, we need to listen to each other. It can't just be one-sided. You do for me what I want you to do, and then I treat you however I want to treat you. There's got to be a give and take. And I think that's what's missing in a lot of relationships, because people are looking at what can you do for me instead of how we can help each other to feel fulfilled. And that's what a relationship is supposed to be about. You look for that partner in life that's going to share your good experiences and even help you through some of your difficulties, and you're going to do the same.
That's right.
It can't be one-sided.
That's right.
So what do you think about?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And that's one of the exciting things about what William's doing, the work that he is doing, because he's doing a lot of this work side by side with his wife. And this is what we need. We need to find a partner who shares our values. You know, we share their values, they share our ideals and our goals and our plans, and we share theirs. Yes. And together we work together to fulfill our ambitions and our goals and our dreams.
Yes, yes. And
yeah, as you said, it can't be one-sided.
Now, one thing that I think has had a tremendous impact on relationships, the culture in many countries has changed, because there's been a time for a long time where the attitude toward women is that you're here to serve us. That was a theme that's been repeated in many religions. And of course they're man-made. That's why that's the theme. So the idea is that your function as a female is to learn how to please a male. And that has been culturally accepted all across the globe. I'm not pointing to any one group of people. You can find it in Asian cultures. You can find it in African cultures. You can find it in European cultures. So we can't point the finger at any one group. Everybody's done it. And of course, it is not in harmony.
There's this fascinating documentary series on the BBC a few years ago. And it was about that very thing. And it went to different parts of the world at different times. And they found the same phenomenon where women had power, women had freedom, women were able to control their own destiny to a certain extent, and women were respected and had their place in society and were contributing to society. And then the regime was overturned by a patriarchal regime, and then women's freedoms were taken away, women's agency was taken away, and women found themselves in situations where, like, for example, they weren't even allowed to go outside.
Oh, yes, yes.
And I saw the program about Vietnam. It happened in Vietnam. I've seen the program that was about France, and they're talking about the French Revolution. Women had power and agency at the time of the French Revolution. And a whole bunch of women actually marched through the night from Paris down to Versailles, stormed the palace, and captured the king and queen, Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI, and took them with them back to Paris to stand trial. And then after Napoleon took power, then he brought in the Napoleonic codes. And that meant that women weren't allowed to do anything. Women weren't allowed to vote. I think that women weren't even allowed to go outside sometimes.
Yes.
And women finally got the vote again. Guess what year women got the vote again?
What year was that?
1947.
Wow.
Yeah.
All that
so you're talking
time.
from the late 18th century onwards, women had no power to vote and had no voice, in terms of having a political voice. They didn't have one.
Yes. And, you had to look at that. What was
like you just said, this has been repeated over and over again in different parts of the world at different times in history. The same pattern has emerged. Patriarchy. And we're looking on the screen now. I've got various images of patriarchal systems. This is, again, it's not restricted to one particular ethnic group or continent. It's been a global struggle that women have had to go through century after century, because men have decided that women should be subservient, and they've made it part of the religious teaching that God said women are supposed to be subservient, and women were the ones that sinned and disobeyed and all of that. The whole Adam and Eve story. And why are we not even questioning the validity of that?
You get indoctrinated with that propaganda as a child, and no one ever says
men feel that they have to control women.
yes. And why is that?
They have to control women and must control women, and so they're bringing all these laws in order to curtail women's freedoms and women's rights. You know, completely took away women's rights. There was there was a drama series on TV a few years ago, and it was called The State, and it was about Islamic State. And it was really shocking because everything that happened in this program was based on reality, on what's happening in real life. And it's something only 5 young people from Britain, 5 young British people who decide they want to join up with Islamic State. And so they travel. They don't say exactly what country they're in, right? But they travel to wherever it is. And the first thing the women are told, they live in this big shared house. And the first thing that they're told is, don't believe what you see on Facebook. You have to be married here. And they can't even leave the house. They're not even allowed to leave the house without their husband's permission.
And there are a lot of cultures where that's still the case. And now patriarchy, we've got up on the screen here, the definition. In sociology, patriarchy is described as a form of social organization where cultural and institutional beliefs and values are dominated by men. This leads to male-oriented decision-making and social organization. Patriarchy literally means the rule of the fathers. The opposite, matriarchy, means role of the mothers. Now, an example of patriarchal legal system. In patriarchal societies, the laws and rules are biased toward males. Legal provisions and laws are in favor of men, which leaves women exposed. For example, a patriarchal legal system may require men to sign documents on behalf of their wives. So this was a very recent prevalent situation when it came to if you wanted to buy a home or property, a woman had to have her husband's signature. So we're talking about within the last century where this was the case. This was the practice where women, and very recently, as recent as the 1950s, if a woman was widowed and her husband, the name of the house and everything was in his name, the bank account in his name, she really had a hard time trying to function because nothing was in her name and she had no legal authority over anything. So this has really been a struggle for women.
Not long ago, we're talking 40, 50 years ago.
Yes.
Because I remember Butchie Metrica. Do you know who Butchie Metrica is?
I don't believe so. I don't believe I've heard that name.
Novelist, and she's based here in London, but she's originally from Nigeria. And she was actually my tutor when I did my postgraduate diploma. She wrote over 20 books, right? And English was her 5th language. But I remember her saying, it might have been in one of her books, but I remember her saying that because her husband was very abusive, they had 5 children, and she was the one that was earning. And she was studying at the same time, which is, I think, is quite typical, really. A lot of us find ourselves in that situation.
Yeah, he's the boss, but you're the one that's earning the money.
She wanted to leave him, and so she rented a place to live, and told the landlord that her husband was traveling, that he'd be back. That's the only way that she could rent a property for herself and her children. And she was the one that was earning, but she had to have her husband's permission.
Wow.
To rent a property. Yeah, and this is a man, as I said, he was abusive, and he burnt her first book.
Wow.
Imagine. And she told us, if I hadn't left him, I would never have written anything. But this is the situation that a lot of women found themselves in, and a lot of women still do now. And, during the pandemic and all the lockdowns, domestic violence increased. And, it's a really desperate situation for some women.
This is a very sensitive topic. Every time it's brought up, and I'm glad we're doing it on the show of what do men want, because you have so many people who are very staunch religious people, and they will insist that this is spiritually correct, when in fact, if you are able to go back into the history of humanity beyond what is now current considered history, prehistory of this dispensation, if you will, of human society, there was a time when women were dominant. Just as men were dominant, women were very dominant, and men were subservient. So we're seeing a swinging of the pendulum back to the other extreme. So
so I think it has swung. The pendulum has swung back. Yes, definitely. Because as you just said, as we go through, we have to go over the world.
Yes.
Different cultures, different religions, and from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the strictures on women within Islam are meant to be there to protect women. You know, things that we in the West might look at and say, this is too restrictive or this is oppressive. Those were certainly originally put in place by the Prophet in order to protect women. Would you like to say anything about that?
So, absolutely. And, you know, this has been, and I know that I have a purpose on this planet. And I know part of that purpose, one, is to address the racism and the scars that have ensued as a result, so that we as a people can heal. And I know that my other purpose is to address the oppression of women. And
right.
That is,
energies are out of balance. The energies are out of alignment. And that is very, very true. We've gone too much in the wrong direction now in terms of male dominance. And you need to have a balance. You need to find a balance.
You need to have a balance. And I observe even the concept of protecting women. And, you know, I want us to deconstruct that idea. If we're all in the process of evolving to higher consciousness, and we're coming out of an ignorance where women were abused, and there was a high level of rape, and, you know, you had all across the world, women being sold as, whether it's sex slaves or whatever the case may be, they were treated like property to be sold. And this was part of many cultures. So the idea, first of all, of covering women so that they would not be exploited, their bodies would not be used as things, and they would not be objectified, as they say, that was the intention. But every deed is judged by its ultimate intention. And if the intention is for us to raise our consciousness so that we learn how to treat each other as equal beings, equal of respect, at some point the decision has to be, if I'm a male, that I am evolving out of that barbaric attitude toward the females of my species so that they can be safe in my presence. It can't be 1,500 years later, you're still...
Yes. When I did my degree, we had this meeting. Now, I don't remember who organized the meeting, but some of us had a lot of questions for the Islamic people, the Islamic women. And the Islamic women, as far as I can remember, none of them were actually from the United States, but they were studying there. And what they explained to us is that those strictures which were put into place to protect women, they're meant to be, in terms of like dressing a certain way and covering yourself and so forth, they're meant to be observed during wartime.
Absolutely.
That it's always wartime, right? There's always a war going on somewhere. But this is what we were told at the time, that those things were put into place to protect women during wartime. Now, as we know, if a man decides to attack a woman or a child sexually, it doesn't actually matter how she dresses.
Absolutely.
That's my understanding.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that has
a whole bunch of men in this situation, and they want to attack the women and or the children. They will do so. They don't really care what look what's just happened in Gaza. They didn't care what those women were wearing.
Absolutely. And this is why I know it's necessary for us to address that whole rape issue. Rape has nothing to do with sexual desire. Rape is a hate crime. That's why it's done in war.
Yes,
it's about power, and it's meant to degrade and denigrate and humiliate. That's what it's meant to. It's a weapon. It has nothing to do with how you're dressed. It's a weapon. It's a weapon of war. So that being the case, if we're now in peacetime,
and you have this in any situation where oppressors and now the oppressed.
Absolutely, absolutely.
In any situation where there's the oppressor and there was the oppressed.
And this is something that women need to understand.
In slavery, in terms of the African diaspora, there was also a financial incentive, because if a man could get a woman pregnant or make sure that she becomes pregnant, then that was more money. That was more money.
Yeah, sell her offspring. It wasn't about love, or I love my child. It's like, oh, I want a human being that's worth a certain dollar figure that I can sell. So there's no emotional attachment to that act. And this is what women have to understand, that are holding on to the thought that if a woman is violated physically, she did something to cause it. There's some women who have had that experience, and they're still blaming themselves because they don't understand that a man makes a choice to violate you because he has no respect for himself. A man who has respect for himself would not commit that act. So it has nothing to do with how you're dressed.
Men committing the act also have mothers, they have wives, they have daughters. So it's they don't respect their own flesh and blood either.
Absolutely. And so if you're in a process of spiritual evolution, the goal has to be that you evolve, not that you keep repressing the women because, well, they might get raped. Well, at what point is it your responsibility to evolve out of that mindset where you don't have regard for the life of another human being? That's what the religion is for your evolution.
Well, absolutely, yeah. But I think there's always going to be men out there who see women as objects. And I don't think this society is actually helping.
It's not
that
helping.
Situation.
It's not helping.
These men that call themselves incels, have you heard of this?
I've heard of that. What does that mean?
Incel stands for involuntary celibate. Right. So in other words, men who can't find a partner.
Oh, that's interesting.
And from what I understand, I've never read any incel material, and I'm probably never going to. But from what I understand, it is very, very misogynistic. They hate women. They resent women. And I'm thinking, you hate and resent women that much, then you're not going to find a partner.
Absolutely.
Because my understanding of celibacy from a Buddhist point of view is that it has to be freely chosen.
Right.
There's no such thing as involuntary celibacy, right? It just means you don't have a partner, right?
Right.
You want one and you don't have one.
Right. You have not found one, right? Oh, so it's involuntary celibacy. But like you're describing, it sounds more like a resentment of women as opposed to a respect or reverence for women. And so I'm just showing some images on the screen here about patriarchy. And then, of course, it says patriarchy, derived from the patriarch in Greek, is a term for societies in which male is the favored gender and in which men hold power, dominion, and privilege. And male power in a patriarchy can be found at family, community, and social levels. Now, this one picture that's on the screen now has a woman with her mouth taped shut. And it's generally the kind of attitude, and you have that in many cultures where women are supposed to be kept silent. They're not supposed to speak in houses of worship. They're not supposed to speak in public. So you have that as part of many cultures around the world. And I've experienced I've experienced environments where that is the mindset of men. And these might be men who really believe that they're doing what is spiritually correct. But I would always be shocked when men who are African American descendants of probably some of the latest history's worst repression would agree to that treatment of women, knowing that we collectively endured that, and we should never want to see another human being repressed. We should know better. We experienced that so that we could be a demonstration to the world.
There's this famous woman, I think she was from Brazil. And she's always pictured with a mask over her face, and she's based on a real historical figure who, I think she refused to have sex with someone, a slave master, and so he forced her to wear a mask, and she died. She got TB and she died. And there are many, many different images of this lady. I'm sorry. I know one of her titles is in Scarborough or something, which is Portuguese for enslaved. But she's a very, very well-known and well-loved figure because, she embodies that struggle that so many women have had to go through.
Yes.
Not even being allowed to speak.
Not even being allowed to speak. Now, here, the picture on the screen, a woman holding up a sign, of course, at a women's rally, and says, "Patriarchy, out of my courtroom, out of my bedroom, out of my wardrobe." This is the sign that the woman is holding up. And you think about in court, there was a time that women could not serve on juries. It was just men. And if there was a rape trial, she'd always have to prove it wasn't consent. Like, why did she have to prove that she was violated? I mean, rape is such a highly politicized crime because it's a very personal crime. Two people, and one has violated the other.
In the rest of the criminal justice system, it's supposed to be the presumption of innocence until proven guilty of the person that perpetrated the crime.
Right.
This is saying that the victim is guilty. And the victim
right. Right.
She's not guilty.
Right. That's what has created so much anger between the sexes. When you are violated and then you're treated as if you are guilty, and then you have to prove that you are not guilty. And I understand, because there have been men that have been falsely accused of rape, and there have been cases where men have been killed for a false accusation. So this is a very deep wound between men and women. And if our religious beliefs are supposed to heal us, they can't be reflecting the same philosophy that created the wounds. And that's a really...
Yeah, but they are. They often are. I mean, did you know
often are.
In the news the past couple of days, the Taliban have said they're going to start stoning women to death in public.
So what does that say about what is in the hearts of those men? That is hate. That's hate. And sometimes men are angry because women have hurt them or have made them feel bad. Their self-esteem and all of that has been crushed. So if you're harboring that kind of hatred, you take that to the courtroom. You take that to every aspect of society and enact that hostility toward women. So that's what's happening there. You're stoning women to death. Are you stoning men to death? And what kind of human being stone anybody to death? So there's a barbaricness that evolves when you have that thought.
In the Quran to do this, and I know that it's in the Bible as well. So this is what I have a phrase for this. My phrase for this is blaming God for your own bad behavior.
Yes, that's what that is. Blaming God for your own bad behavior.
Use the Bible as an excuse to beat children.
Yes. And how many people
I remember seeing an interview with Michael Jackson's mother, and she said, "Well, the Bible says that we should discipline our children." But Michael has said that he was brutalized.
Yes.
And personally, I believe that is true.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, but people will turn to a religious text and use that as an excuse for their own bad behavior. Well, God told me to do it. But what happened to personal responsibility?
Yes.
Anyway, I'm going to suggest that we take a break, and I'm going to try and bring my guest, if that's okay.
Yes, I think this is a good time to take a break. And we are so grateful to have Zhana joining us live from London to talk about what do men want. Yes. The issue is, what do men want?
Right, because I'm definitely not tonight.
We're going to take a quick break and come on back, and we're looking forward to our guest that's going to answer that question. What do men want? We'll be right back.
That's it. Yeah.
So stay with us. Yes. And here we go.
Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
And in case you didn't notice the resemblance, we're also three sisters.
We're going to be coming to you every week, sharing our successes and our mistakes as we navigate our lives as moms, wives, sisters, daughters, and of course, Black women in today's world.
We'll talk about it all: race, politics, religion, economics, culture, and we'll take a look at everything from whether or not to use corporal punishment to how do you teach your children about sex.
Look for our upcoming book, Growing Up Charles. It's a personal story about our lives growing up in Maple Park on Chicago's South Side. I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms. Follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Three Black Moms.
Hi, I'm Naima Latif, and if you're watching this, that means you're one of the 4.6 billion people from around the world who are using an electronic device to talk to people. In these times, people are using the internet to talk to everybody. Friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers. People are on their cell phones and computers all day long. Now, if you're in business, that is great news. That means you can sell your products and services all day long and never have to leave your home. All you need is a media connection, somebody to connect you to an audience. And that's why I'm talking to you today. We produce programs, and our audience members are people who shop. They buy clothes, food, beauty supplies, cleaning supplies, home repair, transportation services, childcare services. Whatever you're selling, they need to buy it. We're your media connection. Just follow this link, and tomorrow you can sit back and relax at home while your business is making you money.
Talk Radio. Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution. Join me, Naima Latif, every morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, as we bring you stimulating discussions about the issues affecting our lives.
Yes, join us as we bring you those issues that are affecting our lives. Well, today we're asking the question, what do men want? Because we have had so many conflicts when it comes to male and female relationships. So our first Saturday of the month host, joining us live from London, England, Zhana has asked the question, what do men want? And last month we explored, what do women want? Well, I think we need to hear from the men. Do you really want a society where you're dominating the women? And how do you feel about an equal partnership? And is there just a certain way you'd like to be treated and made to feel special? And do you think you could do that without it being forced? I think so. I think that we can have wonderful relationships without men forcing their will on women. Well, we're back with Zhana, and we're looking forward to hearing from our guest, who'll be William Jackson, who has taught elementary school and higher education for many years in the U.S., as well as Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. And he introduces them to tech skills alongside with his wife, Aida. And I'm looking forward to hearing from him, Zhana, because he's been experiencing various cultures around the world, and he has a perspective of maybe some common things as well as maybe some things that are unique to specific African cultures. He's been to Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa. I've known people from all three of those places, and so there are different cultures, even though it's all on one continent. Maybe he kind of has a perspective of how it differs from American culture. Do you think that we have maybe a unique cultural perspective here because of our experience, or do you think there are some commonalities between the male and female relationships here and abroad?
Are you asking me?
Yes. Because I'm going to ask our same thing to our.
I mean, I do hear about things that happen in other countries that I'm really, really not happy about. But that doesn't mean everything in this country is wonderful either.
Right.
I mean, you might have heard of Ray Cousins. He was a police officer, and when we were in one of the lockdowns during COVID, he came.
Yes. Yeah, I heard a bit about that. There were so many things that happened during that whole COVID experience that gave us an insight about the problems we need to address, because people had to stay indoors with each other and really experience life with each other in a way that you don't do when you're always working, always traveling, nobody's really at home, you kind of pass each other in the night. But there were a lot of issues that came to the surface during the COVID lockdown, and a lot of divorces.
Absolutely. And because he was a police officer, she believed him when he said he was arrested her. And he put her in a car and handcuffs, took her somewhere and raped her and killed her. It's
horrifying.
And, a lot of people are obviously up in arms about that. A lot of women are saying they don't feel safe in London anymore. But when I look at things like, for example, what happened to Joy Gardner, it's like, what does it take before people start to, particularly white people, start to realize how toxic the culture of the police really is and can be? Because Black people have been saying the same thing for years. Black people have been dying in police custody for years.
Yes.
And as I said, this guy was a servant police officer. He committed offenses before that to do with exposing himself, and they were never followed up. Nothing happened. Nothing was done about it. So he's still a servant police officer. Then we find out that there was a WhatsApp group in which other police officers, including Wayne Cousins, were posting very, very misogynistic messages. So this is what I would call toxic masculinity. As far as I'm concerned, that is toxic masculinity. What do you think?
Oh, definitely toxic masculinity. And when you have a situation where people are given ultimate authority, like in a police officer case, then people misbehave, and because there are no consequences, it's encouraged. So then that does create an environment where women are unsafe. Yeah, and that's the thing that has been the undercurrent of the culture. Our Wednesday co-host, Kareem Hamid, for a year he did a series, a men only discussion series, and they started out talking about how men are raised to think about how to use women. Other men, older men, basically school them on how to seduce women, how to lie to women, how to play women, all kinds of things. Not how to marry, how to find someone that you trust, you respect, you want to bring into your family, but basically how to exploit women. That's a skill that's taught by older men, and so it becomes part of the culture.
Yeah.
And here,
I knew a guy, lovely, sweet guy. I think he was Nigerian parentage, and he told me he used to have loads of women, and other men would come to him and ask him for advice.
Yes.
His father had loads of women, so it was like he learned from his father how to treat women.
Yes.
And so other men would come to him and he would coach them about how to lie and how to do what you want, how to get the woman to do what you want.
Yes.
That kind of thing.
So
he was all fine with that until one day he saw his father's partner with another man.
Oh,
and
wow.
Like all of a sudden it came home to him what he'd been doing for all these years. And that caused him to change his behavior. And at that time, he was seeing 5 different women. And he decided the one that was the most important to him, and that's the one he ended up married to.
Wow.
And he's faithful to her because she's the most important woman to him.
Mm.
But it took seeing his father's partner with another man to make him realize what he'd been doing.
Yeah, destroying women. Yes. Well, here on a feminist professor gave a definition of patriarchy we have on the screen. It says patriarchy is the institutionalization of androcentrism, a cultural system of male domination and privilege which has empowered men to control and limit female possibilities, restricting their bodies and lives. So that's her definition. And it says it is patriarchy that says men are stupid and monolithic and unchanging and incapable. It's patriarchy that says men have animalistic instincts and just can't stop themselves from harassing and assaulting. It's patriarchy that says men can only be attracted by certain qualities, can only have particular kinds of responses, can only experience the world in narrow ways. Feminism holds that men are capable of more and are than that. So really, if men are worried about the term feminism is actually saying you have the power to be a decent human being. Patriarchy would say to you, well, I can't help myself. Yes. So I think that
on some level, if you're not treating someone else with respect, then you're not treating yourself with respect either.
Absolutely. That is the thing. If you believe, as a man, if you believe that women have to be protected from you raping them, then you don't have any respect for yourself, because rape is not a natural instinct. A sex drive, that's a natural instinct, but to violate someone, to violently force the sex act, that is not a natural instinct. That is not. And so the idea that you are so animalistic, and I'm going to tell you something, animals do not force sex. Rape is not a thing that you will see in the animal kingdom.
There is sexual violence in the animal world as well.
There's sexual violence among one other species of animal. And I looked this up when I was writing the book, The Female Solution. There are only 2 species of beings that rape: human beings and apes. Those are the only 2.
See, I live with cats, and I I know a lot about cats, and this is one of the things I personally witnessed, that cats will also sexually violate each other.
Wow, that's pretty awful. Now, are these
Yes, it is awful, but it happens. You know, just because something is
are
natural.
these domesticated cats?
Not everything that's natural is good. But I've known that to happen.
Yes.
And I've also, from what I understand, some waterfowl also commit sexual violence as well.
Now, what I've researched in terms of when animals commit sexual violence, it's always when there are unnatural conditions in their environment, because chimpanzees and humans are the only ones who rape as a, I guess you say, a cultural way of interacting with the females of their species. But now elephants have been known to rape when their environment is disturbed and there's an unnatural imbalance between males and females because of the killing, the poaching. Ducks have been observed raping when they're in an unnatural environment where their maybe wings are clipped. And I was researching this. I think I might have told this story. I was researching about rape because my theory was that, you know, animals don't rape. And then I was in the library and I was reading about how sometimes in the zoos, you know, how they have the big enclosures with the birds. And so if they have clipped the wings of the female bird and she can't get away, she might be gang raped by a bunch of male birds. And of course, being in a enclosure where you can't get away, that's an unnatural environment. So I'm sitting there in the library reading this, and somehow it just hit me so hard. You know, a female duck being raped, she can't get away because she's in a cage, her wings are clipped. I started crying, you know, and and I'm thinking, oh my God, people don't think I'm crazy. So I had to put a book in front of me, you know, because I didn't want the guard to come over, you know, and say, "Ma'am, are you okay?" You know, I mean, how do I explain why I'm in tears? Oh my God, they raped the dog! I mean, she thought it was some kind of nut, but it just hit me so hard that when we create an unnatural environment for animals, then they begin to act in the unnatural way that we act, because human society has created unnatural environments, the crowding of housing projects and just the unnaturalness of the way we live and the extreme stress and poverty and all of those things that are unnatural to a life of joy and peace the way it should be. So, you know, when we do it to animals, they rape just like we do.
Heard or read about the Magdalene homes, the Magdalene sisters?
I don't think I've heard of them. The Magdalene sisters, what do they do?
Let me explain. This is about what was happening in Ireland, that women were sent off to these homes where they were basically brutalized by nuns.
Oh, wow.
And some of the reasons, and Ireland I bring this up because Ireland is a very, very rural country by and large. I mean, there are cities in Ireland, but by and large, it's a very rural country. And people are living, you know, close to the land, but maybe in some situations they're not that well educated. And so if a woman was raped, right, the film focuses on 4 women in particular, and it's based on a book called The Magdalene Sisters as well. One of the women is raped at a wedding. And she's at her cousin's wedding, and her father finds out, or she tells him or something. And the next day, the priest comes and collects her and takes her to the Magdalene home. And the Magdalene home was like a prison. And once you were in there, you were in there for life.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, there wasn't a trial. Not that she'd done anything wrong anyway, but once you're in there, you're shut in there for life.
Oh, wow.
And women who, in those days, you know, if a young woman had a baby and she wasn't married, she could be sent to Magdalene home.
Oh, wow.
And I strongly recommend that you read it or you watch the film. Actually, I don't think I've read the book, but I've read quite a few articles about it, and I have seen the film a couple of times. And you know when the last Magdalene home closed?
When did it finally close?
You ready for another shock? 1994.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, to me, it's not about, I think you've got a point. I do think you've got a point, but it's not just about whether it's a natural or unnatural environment. These people are doing what they are told, it's what God wants them to do. But the nuns that are running these places are so cruel.
Well, that's another thing.
Cruel.
That's another thing.
They would judge a woman because she had a baby out of wedlock. They would do. Oh, you know that film? I don't know if you've ever seen that film, Philomena.
That sounds familiar. It sounds familiar. I think I may have seen it years and years ago. And that's the thing. Every movie I've seen with nuns.
And again, it's a true story. These are all true stories. Again, it happened with this woman when she was very young, got pregnant, and she was sent to Magdalene home. Now, she was not kept in there for life. But her baby was taken away from her, and people came from the States, and all they needed to have was £1,000 and be Catholic, and then they could take a baby and adopt it. And so her wife trying to find her son, and that's what the film is about. Wow. She finally finds out where he went and what happened to him and so forth. But it's a true story, and this is what was done to women and girls, and in the States as well. I believe there was a time when if you got pregnant outside of marriage, you could be put into a mental hospital. Well, that's another thing, and see, this is another thing. The oppression of women can only happen with the consent of women. So when you live in a society where women are agreeing to this, that's when 1994. So that tells you something about us. And this slide I have on the screen now, it says, feminism requires precisely what patriarchy destroys in women: unimpeachable bravery and confronting male power. So if someone beats you down, then you don't have the ability to resist when they're oppressing you. And that's what happens. And when you have women who are complicit in upholding a system of oppressing women, you can never get rid of the system. So every movie I've seen about nuns, and I'm not bashing Catholicism. They believe that's what God wants. Where they look down on other women. So this again points to, if you're a nun and you've chosen a celibate life, then in those situations they look down on women who chose to be sexually active. Yes. By the way, they criminalize sex. Older women that were in the Magdalene homes, not even older women in this particular film, were sexually active. So now, one woman was put in there because she was considered to be too pretty. That is also a lot of what those homes were. They would penalize women who were, we know what that is. That's just jealousy. They would penalize women who were attractive, make them shave their head and wear all these, drab clothes, and penalize them for being sexual because they had chosen to not express their sexuality. So they want to penalize and punish and treat cruelly women who had, and criminalize them. And we got to look at what does that say about what's inside of us that we do that to other women? And why are we swallowing the idea that God is repressing sexuality and making it a criminal act? Why have we accepted that thought? Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people have that attitude. I was certainly brought up with the attitude that people who had sex outside marriage, there was something wrong with them, that they were deranged. I can understand. Again, there's the intention behind something when it was meant to correct a problem, and then there's the intention behind it when it's meant to be a source of oppression. The intention in regulating or advising or creating a system where people would make a commitment to each other is because if you're producing a child, you need to be jointly responsible for that child for the sake of the child's well-being. That's what the whole point of it is, so that the child has two committed parents that will raise them. That was the reason. Many people are not. Right.
So then, if you have sex with somebody,
find themselves in a position where they're alone. I think a film about Bob Marley the other day. A new film was come out about Bob Marley, and I saw a documentary about him a few years ago as well. And in the documentary, because his father was white, his father had a job which took him all over the island of Jamaica, and he just had women basically in every port. Every town that he visited, he had different women. So he had a different woman. So he had children with them. And Bob Marley, to a certain extent, also behaved the same way. Although he was married, he had lots of women, he had children with different women, and sometimes he used to get his wife, there's a woman in his dressing room. Sometimes he would send for his wife and say, "Look, I can't get her to leave. Can you get her out of here?"
Wow.
Sometimes his wife would come in and help him.
Wow.
Now difficult situation.
That's a bit of a mess. I look at the way women are criminalized if they have a child out of wedlock, when in fact it's the man who is not intending to be a responsible husband for his child that has, if there's any crime committed, that would be the violation against the society is what it is, because the society wants to make sure all the children are taken care of, and parents have that responsibility. If you're having sex, you're opening the door for life to come through you, and that means you need to be committed to that life that comes through you to take care of its well-being. That's what should happen. If your intention is to just experience sex without regard for all of the lives that you're affecting, well, then that's a violation against the community in which you are existing. So the idea of marriage was not supposed to be an oppressive thing where you know.
But we know that in the heat of the moment, sometimes values just go out the window. Sometimes people don't have those values in the first place. If you see your father go from woman to woman, right? If you're a man, and you see your father go from woman to woman, that is your norm.
That's your norm. So again, if men are teaching men to basically be as sexually active with men as they have the skills to be, and that's the standard, that's the value that they're teaching, you can't then punish women for being sexually active, because it takes two. And that's why patriarchy is so unfair.
What to say this about Boris Johnson? Boris Johnson, his second wife, was pregnant when he married her. They had 4 children together. His third wife, Carrie, who he's with now, had a baby with him before they got married. He has told so many lies and committed so much deception just within his private life, not even starting to talk about his political life yet. And they say that his father was very much the same.
Yes.
This is what it says. Stanley Johnson, was Boris's role model.
Yes. So
if you're a man and you've grown up with that kind of role model, then what does it take for you to actually develop some kind of some ethical practices, some ethical behaviors?
I think
kind of moral compass.
I think one of the first things when we raise children, we must raise them with empathy for other people. Because when you have that, when you can instill in a child, think about how you would feel if someone treated you like this. If you can instill that kind of quality, then teaching them to do right is easy. Because you always think about, how are you affecting everybody else? Whatever you do affects everybody whose life you touch. So how are you affecting them? And would you want someone to affect you that way? Would you want someone to make you feel that way? So we have to be able to teach empathy for women, for men, and vice versa.
And empathy always has to start with self-empathy.
Absolutely.
So if you're out hurting other people through your behavior, then in some ways you're hurting yourself as well.
Yes.
If you just see people as sex objects and you use them as sex objects,
then you don't value yourself much.
You are cut off from your own emotions.
Yeah. You're not experiencing a real union with another being that would enhance you spiritually. And if you don't know that that's what it's supposed to do, you don't know. Yeah. So, and I know that men are taught a lot of contradictory things. There is the desire for admiration of other men, which you get if you have women or a pretty woman or, a desirable woman, a woman with high status. Then that raises your status. If you have a bunch of women, you can raise your status. That means, you must, have great male attributes, whatever they are. So men look at getting the admiration of, first of all, other men. And then whatever thing that they're taught they're going to get from their involvement with a woman, that's what they seek. I mean, that's part of nature. You're attracted to the opposite sex unless something happens and you're attracted to the same sex. But, that's another whole thing. And that's another whole show in itself. But the fact of the matter is, people don't understand sexuality as being connected to spirituality. And they've made religious laws to punish people for being sexual. And if the idea of having a regulation for your sexual activities was so that you could be in a best position to care for the children that come through you, then even that can't be by force. It has to be because you understand that you're responsible. Once you transition to adulthood and your body is able to reproduce another human body, then there has to be an understanding of the responsibility of that, and you willingly regulate your behavior because you understand the greater consequence of the choices you make. That's something that has to be instilled. It has to be part of the culture.
I would like to think that happens, but certainly, for those of us in the African diaspora, we know a lot of those bonds have been broken, have been completely destroyed because of what we've been through for the past 400 or 500 years.
Right.
That women were allowed to choose their partners. They had to sleep with whoever they best supposed to sleep with, have a baby with whoever they best wanted them to mate with, and the men were not taught to look after their partners. They were even sometimes allowed to have partners. They were just made to go from woman to woman.
Right.
And we're still living with the consequences of that kind of attitude and behavior now.
Well, I think, if you build on a foundation that's already rocky and crooked, the patriarchy, which says a woman is something I can use. And so then you have a whole continent full of men. And Europeans aren't the only ones who did it, because we talked about even what happened with the Korean women during the war with Japan and how they were used same way. Okay, we can use these women with no consequences, no moral judgment, because they can be used. So European men did it with African women. Japanese men did it with Korean women. It's been done by people all over the globe. Where the Germans did it with the Jewish women. So
that was a complete contradiction to the fact that it was illegal for them to have sexual relations with Jews.
Yeah, but if you make it so that you're really a non-person, then I can use you in a way that I can't use the women in my own community, and I can do it with impunity because we all agree that you're not really people anyway.
Exactly.
So we've seen that done.
There's good women and there's bad women, and good women can't be used; they have to be respected. But bad women can be used; you can do what you want to them.
Right. So we have seen that happen globally, and it's a mindset where you choose to violate another human being. You choose to do that. Now, what makes an absence of morals and ethics in another person where they find that to be okay? And that becomes something that when a collective society decides that something that's wrong is okay, well, then it becomes widely expressed. So, a lot of the oppression of women is consented to by other women. You know, just like, you know, how come the white women didn't stand up for us when we were being raped? That didn't happen. You know, you knowing your husband's out here in the slave cabins raping women. How come that wasn't stopped? You know, you're mad at the woman, but you didn't say to your husband, you should not be doing that.
That's because the white women did not have any power over what their husbands were doing. They took it. This is the thing. If you're oppressed, then you look for somebody else who you can.
Yes. The oppressed look for somebody else to oppress.
You know about this.
Yes.
About Harriet Jacobs, you know about this.
Yes.
You know, the white woman has this resentment of the dark woman because she knows that her husband is attracted to this dark woman and can do what he wants to have.
Yeah.
But the black woman has no power in that situation. And then, you know, as a result, she incurs the wrath of the white woman. The white woman can't take out her wrath on her husband. She
can take it out on the.
So therefore, she takes it out on who she can.
Yeah, and if you.
That woman.
Now, have you seen that?
I do believe that we're still living with the consequences of those attitudes.
Yes. Have you seen that movie 12 Years a Slave? The movie where.
I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, that's it. Where Lupita Nyong'o got the Oscar, which she very much deserved for reliving that, so that all of us could see what it looked like and felt like. That was such a common thing. Like you say, the woman is taking out her anger.
It was very common.
Yes, and she takes it out on the black woman rather than her husband. Yeah. So this is.
There's a lot of women who went through that who wouldn't write about it. They wouldn't write about it because if they wrote about it, then they were afraid they would be scorned and they would be shunned.
Yes.
So there's a lot of women, you know, who escaped from slavery who wouldn't write about those kind of things. So Harriet Jacobs wrote about it, and it started when she was 15 years old. Right? This white man was in his 50s, and she was 15, and he was totally obsessed with her.
Common.
His wife hated her and resented her because she knew that her husband wanted to have sex with this woman. Yeah,
there's a book, Jubilee. I don't know if you've ever read that, but same scenario.
I have a long time ago.
Yes, the woman who was, I guess, she was the daughter of the head of the plantation, and when she came into the house to work for the mistress of the house, she was always being beaten and punished and slapped and hit because the woman was taking her anger out on this girl who, you know, was the child of her husband. You know, the
That's right, and this is what they said. This is what the abolitionists used to say. That the people in the South are buying and selling their own
children. Yes.
A man
How sick is that?
With his wife, a white man has a child with his wife, and he has a child with a black woman, and the two children look alike because they both have the same daddy.
Same father. Yes.
Then the white woman's gonna resent it, and she's gonna insist that that young woman or child is sold.
Yes.
Because she feels humiliated.
Yes.
Everybody who comes to the plantation,
they can see.
They look alike.
Yeah, they can see who the father is. So that's part of that sick Southern culture. And so we got a lot of sickness in this nation, a lot of emotional illness that is under the surface, and that's so much part of our relationship. We cannot act like it doesn't exist. It's like within that movie Buck and the Preacher, Ruby Dee said is like a poison soaked into the ground. That's what this is. So this whole male-female relationship thing, the racial thing,
it happened all over the world.
It happened all over the world. And we have to understand that as women, it's a global wound that must heal, and it can only heal if we acknowledge it exists and if we acknowledge our complicity in it. Because, like I said, every picture about nuns I've seen, they're so brutal toward any girl that looks like she might be attractive or they're the first ones to be harsh when it comes to punishing somebody for being sexual, and then there's all these abortions that have happened in the convents, and the babies that they found in the under buried under the ground.
Right. The
Infanticide, yes. That means these were babies that were born and then killed. These were not babies that were born in the third month. These were babies that were born and then killed. So this happened, and we have to face this. So I think there has to be a healthier way that we have relationships with men, but we have to listen. Now, what is it that you actually want? And how do we have these desires and needs met in a way that is healthy for both male and female? So now, is your guest going to be able to join us? We're going to take another break.
Okay, well, so far, I'm sorry to say, I have not heard from William. I have phoned him, but I haven't been able to get in touch with him. So I'm hoping he's going to join us.
Well, let's take another break and try again. See if we can. He has the call-in number.
Yes, he does.
Okay. All right. If you want, you can text it to me.
Obviously something went wrong, but I didn't know what it was.
Something happened.
I can only apologize.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, things happen. Well, we'll take a break and we'll be right back. And you're listening to and watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV show, and live from London, this is Success Strategies with Zhana.
Can I mention as well, if you've got a question or comment to make, please phone us on 515-605-9325. And if you're outside the United States, you need to add 001 to that.
Absolutely.
001 515 605-9325. This is Zhana with the Success Strategy Show.
Yes. And we'll be right back after this quick break. So we want you to stick and stay. Don't stray away. Call in with your comment. We'd like to know, what do men want? So men, call on in and give us a clue, because we want to hear from you. We'll be right back after this quick break. So stay with us.
Hi, I'm Naima Latif, and if you're watching this, that means you're one of the 4.6 billion people from around the world who are using an electronic device to talk to people. In these times, people are using the internet to talk to everybody. Friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers. People are on their cell phones and computers all day long. Now, if you're in business, that is great news. That means you can sell your products and services all day long and never have to leave your home. All you need is a media connection, somebody to connect you to an audience. And that's why I'm talking to you today. We produce programs, and our audience members are people who shop. They buy clothes, food, beauty supplies, cleaning supplies, home repair, transportation services, child care services. Whatever you're selling, they need to buy it. We're your media connection. Just follow this link, and tomorrow you can sit back and relax at home while your business is making you money.
Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
And in case you didn't notice the resemblance, we're also three sisters.
We're going to be coming to you every week, sharing our successes and our mistakes as we navigate our lives as moms, wives, sisters, daughters, and of course, Black women in today's world.
We'll talk about it all: race, politics, religion, economics, culture, and we'll take a look at everything from whether or not to use corporal punishment to how do you teach your children about sex.
Look for our upcoming book, Growing Up Charles. It's a personal story about our lives growing up in Maple Park on Chicago's South Side. I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're 3 Black Moms. Follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, 3 Black Moms.
Hi, this is John Alexander.
And I'm Naima Latif. Meet people like you who are making a positive difference in the world.
Big difference.
Watch us every day on The Media Connection at www.youtube.com/The Media Connection TV.
YouTube it. We'll see you soon.
We have an opportunity to transform the whole global society in the next 50 years. 50 years from now, the earth will be populated by a new generation of adults, many of whom are yet unborn. Our mission is to nurture them in childhood with love, guidance, and protection, and to raise them in healthy, happy families. If we impart values of compassion, generosity, and respect for fellow human beings in the next generation of children, they will create a world where people can live together in peace. This is our goal. Be a part of the transformation. Get your copy of the book, The Female Solution. Go to www.naimalatif.com. That's www.naimalatif.com.
And we are back. You're listening to and watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. I'm Naima Latif, and joining us live from London is our first Saturday of the month host, Zhana. And we've asked the question, what do men want? Well, we've seen what they've done. They want, apparently, a woman who is submissive, subservient, does what they say, obedient, all these things that we see, all of these attributes that are supposedly, they said, well, this is what God said. But come on now. Women, I want you to let me know, did God ever tell you something like that you were supposed to subvert your will to someone else's? I don't think so. We're all here from our own free will. Now, with our free will, we have the opportunity to be of service to each other and to be kind and loving to each other. But it's not love if you're beaten into submission. And men, do you really want to beat somebody into submission? Why would you want that? Do you find that's a good, healthy relationship? I certainly want to hear from men on that. So, Zhana, what do you think? Have you ever seen a relationship in which someone was forcibly suppressed and they felt good about it?
I don't think that's possible, actually. I really don't think it's possible.
Either.
But I have met people who said they were glad that they were beaten. And I remember Oprah Winfrey talking to Dr. Phil about this one day. And she was saying that her relatives tell her, I'm glad I was beaten, I'm glad I was beaten. And Dr. Phil said, well, they have to say that. Now, personally, I don't believe they have to say that. I think you always have a choice. But it's like within their own minds, because they were helpless in that situation, within their own minds, they had to believe that they were glad, they were grateful that someone beat them. But I don't think that's genuine. I really don't. What do you think?
Well, here it is. You have two choices when someone does something to you that's horrible. You can either be angry and hate them, or you can, like Dr. Phil said, you can create an idea in your mind that it was necessary and therefore you're really better for it, because that's the way you cope with being violated. And that's how you deal with your trauma. And I hear people say that all the time. Well, I'm glad I was spanked. My parents made me behave. I'm sorry, what was that?
No, I just said it's a violation. You just said it's a a violation.
It's
It
a
is
violation.
So how can that be a good thing?
How can it be a good thing when someone has infringed upon your right to, in your own body, be in a state of comfort and peace, and they have caused you pain? How is that ever good?
Yeah.
When they could have, if they had the skills and the wisdom,
fear.
pain and fear. When they, if they had the
Pain
skills and the
emotional pain
wisdom,
and fear.
they could have easily helped you understand why something that you did was hurtful or harmful or dangerous. They could have helped you understand that in a way that was peaceful and calm. It did not require pain to
No,
beat you.
And I might think that, but not everybody is on the same page. And I might have told you this before, and I remember there was a guy who was working, I think he was working for one of the churches, local, and we used to always pass each other and say, hi, how you doing? One day I was sitting in the park, and he came by, and we started talking. And I don't know if I was talking to him about nonviolent communication in DC, but he started telling me all these reasons why it's important to beat children. It's a good thing to beat children, and he was beaten. And he worked with young people. At this church where he was based, he was working with young people. And he told me all these stories about, well, so-and-so was beaten, and so-and-so was beaten, and it's a good thing. And he started telling me more stories. I said, no, hang on, wait a minute. Don't tell me any more stories. What you're doing is trying to tell me that the end justifies the means. And he said, it does. And I said, it doesn't. And then I said, well, we don't have to use violence against children to get them to do what we want. And he was so shocked. He was so shocked that I used the word violence. He was really, really hurt.
Oh, I've seen people get upset about that. Yes.
So term to us, it was a very strong thing to do. I think if beating someone to force them to do what you want, that's violence. And he wasn't hearing that. He said, it's teaching. I said, you don't have to use violence to teach a child.
Well, that's the thing. You have people who went to school where that's what happened. If you didn't say the right answer, you could get slapped or hit or beat. Or if you did any other thing.
That's right.
But that's like saying, I don't have the intelligence for you to explain this to me. I need to be caused pain. So why would someone say that about themselves if they respect themselves? There's no way that you would agree that you don't have the intelligence for someone to explain something to you so that you understand. You need to be hit. You need to be beat. You need to be caused pain. You can't respect yourself if you agree to that. And I've heard many, many people try to justify them getting beaten because what else do you do? Do you say, well, my parents, whom I love, didn't have the wisdom to know how to raise me without violence? That is correct. They did not have the wisdom to raise you without violence. They didn't have the skills. They didn't know.
That's why we need to upskill parents.
That's it. We have to increase the skills, because if we're believing that this is how people have to learn, then we'll just keep creating more violent people, because violence begets violence. You're not going to get a peaceful person that you've raised with beating them.
From the diaspora, this is what we've been taught for hundreds of years. That Black people are brutes, and the only really way to get through to them is through violence.
Yes.
And sometimes really, really horrific violence.
And that's what's happened. That's what, you look at how that's what's taught in the police academies. The way they don't know how to de-escalate a situation if somebody's upset. They only know brutality because that's how they're trained. That's what they believe.
Right.
And, they're taught, of course, to be in fear of their lives. So now here I have up on the screen, what does the Bible say about beating children? Well, there's Proverbs 13:24. Whoever spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. Proverbs 23:13. Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you strike him with a rod, he will not die. Now you got people reading that and preaching that, and people who say, they're following God, they believe this. Okay, Proverbs 22:15.
That's right.
Folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline drives it far from him. So just that thought. You're putting you're putting negative intentions into the mind of a child, in your own mind. And I see people doing that all the time. Now you have a 2-year-old that throws their bottle across the room, maybe because they don't know how it tastes or whatever, or they're just frustrated, and you decide that they're disrespecting you, and so you start beating that 2-year-old because they threw the bottle and said no. And so you decide that this 2-year-old is disrespecting your authority as a parent, so you start spanking them. Is that intelligent? Now I have many people who will believe it is.
That 2-year-old has to respect you.
Mm-hmm.
And has to behave in a way that you think indicates respect.
Yes, and it's your own. Anytime an adult person accuses a child of disrespecting them, it's because that person feels inside that they're not worthy of respect. So you're interpreting other people's behavior as confirming what you already fear about yourself. And it has nothing to, and children's behavior has nothing to do with respect.
But, there's so many people who brought up that way. And that's another thing that happened in 12 years of slave. On Sunday, which is meant to be the day off for the enslaved, they have to sit there listening to the plantation owner, reading to them from the Bible about why they should be beaten.
Yes. And so, how deep is the brainwashing? So now here it says Deuteronomy 22:21. Then they shall bring out the young woman to the door of her father's house, and the men of her city shall stone her to death with stones, because she has done an outrageous thing in Israel by whoring in her father's house. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. So here it is. This is what you do to women. You beat them. You stone them to death because what if she has sex in her house, and if she's caught having sex, this is how she's supposed to be treated. She's supposed to be, publicly stoned.
And that's a good reason to stone someone to death, right? Because they decided to have sex.
Yeah, right. You need to die because you had sex.
That's a good reason.
And there will be women who will uphold this.
But it's just so. And the thing is, as well, the way the term rod is used in the Bible, most people interpret it in a particular kind of way, which is an instrument of violence. But if you remember from the 23rd Psalm, it says, "Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me." So the term rod is kind of ambiguous, actually. A rod can be used, like those hooked sticks that the shepherds used to use. If a lamb was lost, they could use the rod to rescue the lamb and bring it back into the fold.
Right. Doesn't necessarily mean an instrument of beating.
The is used in the Bible is it's kind of ambiguous, really.
Yes. Now I'm gonna throw this thought out here because I know it's controversial, but it's John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believed in him should not perish but have eternal life. Now the idea,
I've heard that somewhere.
The idea is that God had to have someone be tortured and beaten and bleed to death in order to forgive human beings. That thought is at the core of Christian beliefs. And I love my Christian brothers and sisters.
Yes.
But if you do not understand the experience that Jesus had nothing to do with God needing to punish someone, you are going to agree to all of these acts of cruelty and all of these other verses because you don't understand what Jesus was demonstrating in that experience. And it had nothing to do with God needing to punish someone for your misbehavior by making them be tortured to death. What Jesus has said, and I'm going to advocate, and we are all sons and daughters of the Creator. We're all expressions of God. We're all of us. And this is what Jesus taught. And I'm going to advocate, and I know she's busy, but I'm putting out there in the universe. I want you to look up a book, Jesus, My Autobiography, in which he explained that what he was demonstrating to his disciples, that you are not your body. No one can kill you because you are an eternal being. So You don't have to fear people because they threaten to kill you. You existed before you were in this body. You will exist after you're in this body. And you are not this body.
Well, as you know, I don't believe in a creator, and I don't worship a creator. But if you do worship a creator, it seems to me you want to worship someone who is loving and compassionate and kind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So why would someone who's loving and compassionate and kind?
To a terrible, terrible death.
Absolutely.
You know, one of my favorite songs is Spartacus, and it's a true story about this uprising of enslaved people in ancient Rome. Yes. And the leader was called Spartacus. And in the end, he gets crucified, and they crucified, I think, 1,000 people or something. And, you know, you get a sense from that, but a terrible, terrible thing it was to do, to crucify someone. What a terrible death it was.
Yes. It's like a slow torture. Yes.
No, can you repeat that, please? Something just...
Oh, I said it's a slow, torturous death. That's why it was so horrible.
Yes.
And what kind of people would enjoy doing that? So that the level of barbarism.
I mean, my favorite scene in Spartacus is the bit where the woman is saying, you know, I'll give you a reward. I can't remember where the office, but I'll give you a reward to anyone here who identifies Spartacus. And of course, one person stands up and says, I'm Spartacus, and another person stands up and says, I'm Spartacus. And
yes.
Douglas is looking around, thinking, all these people are taking on my death. You know, they're sacrificing themselves for me. And in the end, he stands up as well and says, I'm Spartacus. The truth. But it's so moving.
Yes.
It's so moving because he gave these people a glimpse of freedom, a glimpse of liberation.
Yes.
They were willing to die for him. And they did.
Powerful
and
message.
I find that so uplifting, so moving.
Powerful message. Well, that's the thing. When you no longer fear death.
We're talking about toxic masculinity. That's masculinity in a positive sense.
Yes.
People are willing to stand up and fight. And you know, part of in that movie they show when after the gladiatorial games were finished in that night, each gladiator was given a woman in the night with. And it's a really wonderful film. I mean, you need to see that film and see the look on these women's faces. Anybody who says that enslaved women were sexy, and that's why the men wanted to have the person.
Had nothing to do with that.
See the look on these women's faces, and the look on their faces says everything. They don't look sexy. They just look like people who are being forced to have sex with someone they don't want to have it with.
Horrible,
and,
horrible,
that speaks volumes right there, that scene. Just the look on these women's faces.
Yeah.
And, you know, he, as a man, stands up for this woman and protects her. And, ends up, you know, she ends up being his partner and they have a child together.
Yeah.
But to me, the positive masculinity is protecting women and children.
Yeah, that's real protection.
You know, forming strong bonds with your male friends and protecting women and children.
Yes. So I think that the way we think about violence being okay, the way we think about oppression being okay, the way we think about the cruelty of whether it's beating women, beating children, beating anybody into submission being okay, that is what we have to evolve out of spiritually. Teachings that are incorrect and out of alignment with the Creator. The energy of the creation is only love. It's only love. Regardless of whatever your religious belief is, when it comes through the filter of a human mind that has been raised with brutality, it gets reinterpreted as condoning brutality. I believe every I believe every religion started out with the basic truth of love. Whether it's Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, even Christianity, at its core, at its base, the teachings of Jesus were based on the universal love and the creative spirit of love that brought us into being. It was not about brutality or, You had to beat the devil out of somebody, beat the evil out of your child, or humiliate this woman because she had sex. None of those things come from the creator, the creative energy of the universe. None of that. But coming through the filter of a human mind, where you've lived in a society where people brutalize each other as a culture, then you end up saying, well, God said this. No, you said this. You are like the filter that is dirty. Like if you,
God for your own bad behavior.
yes, you're blaming God for your own bad behavior.
The way you would want to be treated, which is like one of the main teachings that Jesus gave us.
Yes.
And personally, as a Buddhist, I believe that Jesus was very influenced by the Buddhist teaching, because there are people who will say that Jesus actually went to India.
He did. There's a book called Jesus in India. Yeah.
It was a Buddhist country. So I think if you look at the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament, and it may be controversial, but this is what I think, that the New Testament was very focused on love, compassion, and also taking personal responsibility. Like, never mind the speck in your neighbor's eye. Take the log out of your own eye. That is one of my favorite biblical teachings.
Yes.
And it's all about taking responsibility, taking personal, individual responsibility.
Yes.
So personally, I believe that was very influenced by the Buddhist teaching.
Well, again, there are books that verify that.
An eye for an eye.
Yeah.
But in the New Testament, it's don't throw stones. If you live in a glass house, don't throw stones.
Yeah, there you go. So
without sin, throw the first stone.
Right. So that would eliminate all the stonings to death of all the people, regardless of what you think they did. Stoning women for having sex and all of that. That eliminates all of that. And if people really want to know, and again, I'm going to advocate this book, Jesus, My Autobiography, written through Tina Louise Spalding. You can look it up, Tina Louise Spalding, Spalding. I post some of her things on my Facebook page sometimes.
Okay.
And, look it up, Jesus, My Autobiography, and Jesus' own words, what happened, his travels to India, all of those things, and even explaining A Course in Miracles, another book that came through
because
people.
That is meant to have been dictated by
Yes,
Jesus.
yes.
I spent a lot of time, I spent several years studying A Course in Miracles before I became a Buddhist.
Yes.
And that book is said to be dictated by Jesus.
Just like the book Jesus, My Autobiography. Two books that the energy and consciousness of the one we know as Jesus had written, so that the teachings that he brought could be interpreted the way they were meant to be and not misinterpreted. Even understanding the crucifixion, not being him taking on the punishment of the world and God wanting him to be tortured to death as punishment for people, but him trying to help people not be afraid of death, because death is an illusion. No one ends your life. Your life is eternal, and you can master your mind so that. And he said most of the time, which I know y'all don't want to hear it, but I can't talk now. So look, he said most of the time during what they say, he suffered, his consciousness had already left his body. He was not suffering for your sins.
Okay.
When you master your mind, and people who know this, like you said, yogis and things like that, he traveled to India. A lot of those abilities to disconnect from your physical body and physical pain, there are people on this earth that had mastered that already, and he mastered that as well.
It's funny you're saying this, Naima, because I've just written a short story about that very thing. But that's one of the things that happens in the short story, is that people have mastered their minds to the point where they don't even feel extreme pain.
Yes.
That's being inflicted on them.
Yes. So that, the whole worship of suffering thing that is so much part of Christianity, he was not suffering for you, because he had mastered his mind and could disengage from that experience. And there's so much
really interesting
that changes your perception of what was happening, and changes the idea that you're born in sin and need to be beaten into submission. So all of that misinterpretation of his teaching if we're going to benefit from the wisdom of a being that came among us to raise our consciousness, then we have to properly interpret what he taught so that we're not taking his teachings and putting it back into our same distorted thinking of hostility and violence toward each other and justifying it. Justifying the oppression of women, justifying the beating of children, justifying the cruelty that keeps reproducing cruelty. If you want the violence to end, stop recreating it in misteachings. That's
I love
all.
the way you're so passionate about this. I love it. It's great.
Yes. Well, you know,
You don't have to think about all those things. If you just think, well, God told us to do this, then that's sort of like, you have to take responsibility for your own actions. You don't even have to take responsibility for your own thoughts, because you're just doing what God tells you
right,
to do.
Right. And I love my Christian and Muslim brothers and sisters, but you know, we have an internal guidance system that tells us when something that we're receiving is right or wrong. If something doesn't feel right, it's because it's not right. If you got to force yourself to believe something, it's not right. If you got to force yourself to believe, well, it really was good that I got spanked because I needed it. And you know in your heart that you had the intelligence to understand. If somebody had just had the skills to explain it, you did not have to be caused pain. You could have been helped to understand because you have the intelligence. You know that. But how do you deal with the anger that you feel toward your parents that you trusted to treat you well, and they didn't, because they didn't know any better? Now we can understand that and forgive our parents for their ignorance. That's also what Jesus demonstrated. Forgiving people for their ignorance, because it was ignorant what they did. But forgive them because they know not what they do. It's the same thing. You got to go through that process with your parents that beat you with ironing cords and belts and shoes and all these other horrible things and whips and tree branches. You got to forgive them because they didn't know what they were doing. They were traumatizing you. And now you got all these distortions in your personality because you have to try to justify trauma. And when you forgive them because they didn't know any better, you can help heal your trauma.
I'm a little confused because you just said that we have the intelligence to know better. So therefore, why did they not use their intelligence to do better? Was it just because they were abdicating responsibility for their own behavior?
You know what you've been taught. If you're living in a society where everybody is doing the same thing, even though it's hurtful, unless you choose to risk being criticized for being different, you're going to do the same wrong thing that everybody else is doing so that you can fit in.
Right. This is what it is. It's a fear of criticism for being different.
Yes. And they didn't know any better.
Because my friend John Gozer, whose book is called Cotton Picking Paycheck, from the time she was born, her parents decided that they were never going to hit her, and they never did. Other parents in the neighborhood would beat their children in front of her sometimes and tell her, this is what you should be getting. In other words, other parents resented her because she wasn't beaten by her parents.
Yeah. We talked about that. I think we talked about that on a show this week. I can't remember whose show it was, but the whole idea of you not getting beat. Oh, I know it was. Zoe was talking about that on her Thursday show. The fact that violence, the whole culture in China. Because on a Wednesday on the show that we did with our children, they talked to the children in China and asked questions. And one of the questions was, and then they asked the teacher, they interviewed the teacher in China, and they asked, what are the consequences, if someone misbehaves? Do they do detention and all that kind of thing? And what she explained is that you write an essay, like a self-reflection. How did what I do hurt others and hurt myself? You have to, think about what you did. So it's not a punishment thing. It's you figure out how to correct your behavior and understand how you hurt people. And so Zoe on her Thursday show, she was observing that, and she said that is how Chinese culture is. It's about harmony and helping people to see when they are disturbing the harmony. So if a child misbehaves, that child has to reflect on what did they do to disturb the harmony and what should they have done differently. That's different than just grabbing a switch and beating them.
In Chinese culture, a lot of violence towards children. I learned some dreadful things.
Yeah.
What was done to children, and then I found out recently under Mao's regime that they would have these discussions, and they're supposed to sit down and discuss, have you disturbed the harmony or something? But what they were actually doing was beating people. There'd be a whole bunch of, like maybe half a dozen people, and they would beat someone because they said that he stepped out of line or something.
So as a human family, we need to master the ways of peace that are reflective of the creative energy of the universe. And none of that involves causing pain. We like to believe that there's a hell where people are suffering that God throws them into. But the reality is, and people say, well, no one's ever died and come back to tell the story. Well, that's not true either, because all over the internet, just look up near-death experience, and you will have there are millions of people who have in fact died and come back. And they're not verifying your religions. They're verifying that there's only love. And the
Buddha said that he, had many thousands of lifetimes. And the Buddha said, every animal is my mother. Right? At some point, he was every different species on this planet before he became human.
So when you understand that, you have respect for all life because you've been all life. And that's the same thing that Dolores Cannon, the hypnotherapist who founded QHHT, the self-healing hypnosis, the quantum healing hypnosis technique, when she took people back to various lives, she said, the human experience as a soul, you have to be everything so that you understand everything. That's the process through which you go through life, so that you understand how everything is interconnected and you have respect for all life. So if you know that this is what life is, it's living, it's having different life experiences so that you can grow in your understanding and wisdom of how everything is interconnected and how your choices affect all other life, all other beings. Then you will not harm people or things.
I also think we have to start from where we are.
Yes.
We can't go through these different life experiences in order to learn. I mean, that's fine, but we also have to start from where we are, wherever we are. Our ethical practice will teach us,
yes,
to avoid hurting others, avoid causing pain to ourselves and others.
Absolutely. And this is,
it's just like, we have to start here and now. We have to start from today.
Start from today.
What we can, and we'll continue to learn and grow with time. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely, I agree. And everybody who's had many of who've had the near-death experience, they explain that what you experience when you leave this body and you review your life, you experience what you made people feel. And if there's any hell, it's going to be the hell the pain that you feel that you've caused other people, knowing that you hurt people. Even if it's something like, pulling the tail on a cat because you just want to hear him scream.
Practice teaches me. When I reflect back on things that I've said and things that I've done, I realize sometimes I've hurt others without intending to.
Right.
So it's all a learning process, you see.
Right. So the thing is,
we're going to make mistakes, but it's all a learning process.
It's
we
a
try
learning.
not to make the same mistake again.
Right. It's a learning
process. It's
process.
so painful. When I realize I've caused harm to another living being, it's so painful.
Yes.
I have a desire to never, ever do that again.
Yes.
Nobody has to beat me to make me feel that.
Right. That's the whole point. No one has to beat you in order for you to feel regret that you've hurt someone. So for people to say, well, I'm glad my parents beat me. No, you could have understood that you hurt someone without you being caused physical pain. And that's what parents have to understand.
That's right.
you can teach a child empathy for others, and they will carry that the rest of their lives, and they will consciously not hurt people. But if you believe that people are born bad, born sinful, born mean, born with the devil in them, then you're going to justify cruelty. And we as a human family have to evolve to a higher understanding so that we stop reproducing this violence. We did this. Everywhere in the world where there's a war, we did this. We can't blame anybody. I don't care what your politics is.
Absolutely.
We all collectively are responsible for this because we keep teaching that this is what God said. So if you're believing that you're adding to the violence.
What's happening in Gaza right now, yeah? Look at what's happening. The Israelis think they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Right? Hamas think they're doing the right thing.
Yes.
They're both sides believe that they're doing what God told them to do.
Yes.
And all they're doing is causing suffering to each other.
Yes.
That's all they're doing.
They're stuck in a cycle of suffering.
For themselves and each other. It's horrendous. This is like human beings, we perpetuate the violence. We don't need a God or someone to tell us. This is what we're doing to each other.
Yes, we are. We're doing this to each other. And everybody on the planet is contributing either to the peace or the violence with their own thoughts. If you can energetically think in terms of wanting the well-being for all parties involved and wanting them to come to a point of understanding, compassion, forgiveness, and sharing, if you can put forth that thought and that energy, you can help the situation. But if you're angry at either side and thinking either one needs to be bombed or beaten,
when you have empathy for yourself,
yes,
then your heart can open more
yes,
to others.
Yes. So energetically, we need to help that situation by sending the energy of compassion, forgiveness, understanding, and harmony, because it is possible. These are human beings trapped in a cycle of violence and vengeance for violence and vengeance for violence, and they're stuck in a cycle and they can't get out of it without help. Some people have to see the situation differently, because what they're demonstrating is what happens when you can't get out of that cycle of incorrect thought. It just goes on and on and on. So we have to help them get out of that cycle of incorrect thought. God is not telling you to kill anybody. Because people who are religious, it's hard for them to let go of the idea that perhaps what they have been taught was incorrect. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
But everybody can hear the voice of God for themselves. You don't need to ask somebody with a clerical degree or a school where they went to divinity school and memorized a bunch of verses. Just go to the creative energy in your own soul and you can get an answer. And when something feels right, it is right. If something feels wrong, it's wrong. Trust your inner guidance. And we can make this a place of peace for all of us. We really can.
We can. We can do that. Yeah.
Yes. Well, Zhana, we're going to have to
take responsibility for creating peace in our lives.
Take the responsibility.
And in the world. And when we come together, we are so much more powerful.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Well, of course, you've been listening to and watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV show live from London, Success Strategies with Zhana. And we're going to come to you again with the What Do Men Want? Because we still want to hear what do men want. We'll get a chance to hear some of what you want.
We got kind of off the subject, but that's okay.
Well, part of what causes the distress is that we keep believing that someone has to be hurt in order for someone else to be happy. And that's incorrect. Women don't have to be oppressed in order for men to get love or nurturing, or even sexual fulfillment. It's not meant to be a painful thing for either party. We're all here to love and be loved.
Yes,
so we can do this without anybody being made to feel bad. So we have to figure out how to do it. We can. So we're going to...
And we can figure it out together.
We can figure it out together. So, well, it's time for us to go. And we want to, of course, invite you all to come on back to the Female Solution and Soul Purpose Healing with Viata tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, and I believe it's probably in the middle of the night, GMT, but that's all right if you're a nightlife person. About 1 a.m., but that's all right. Get on up and watch it anyway. We appreciate you so much. Thank you, Zhana. We appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you again next month. And until that time, we want all of you to continue to shine your light, because you are the light of the creative energy of the universe, as are we all. So shine your light.
That's a beautiful note to end on.
60 seconds.
Yes. And we will see you all next time on the Female Solution.
If you're listening online at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution.
Let's start from the beginning and greet our global family all over the
Blog Talk Radio.
Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution. Join me, Naima Latif, every morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, as we bring you stimulating discussions about the issues affecting our lives. If you're listening online at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution, press the blue button that says follow and get our daily topics every morning directly to your email and your smartphone. Hi, I'm Naima Latif, executive producer of the Female Solution radio show. We invite you to call in 515-605-9325 and participate in this daily think tank as we examine the challenges we face and develop solutions that restore peace and harmony. We are global transformers, changing the world from the way it is to the way it should be. We are one. Wherever we live on this earth, we are one human family. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to extend a greeting to all the members of our family, whenever and wherever you may be listening around the world. To our family in China, Ni Hao. In India, Namaste. In Japan, Konnichiwa. In Korea, Annyeonghaseyo. In Russia, Здравствуйте. In Germany, Guten Tag. In Poland, Dzień dobry. In France, Bonjour. In Spain, Hola. In Italy, Ciao. In Egypt, Ahlan wa sahlan. In Ghana, Akwaba. In Nigeria, Peleo. In South Africa, Sawubona. In Senegal, Nangadef. In Kenya, Jambo. In Israel, Shalom. In Pakistan, Afghanistan, Palestine, and Saudi Arabia, Assalamu alaikum. Greetings, and may peace be upon you all. Join us live on the on-air radio network. Call 727-731-5192. We want to